Have you been slowly poisoning yourself with your morning cup of tea? What if I told you that some of the most popular tea brands on supermarket shelves are hiding something dangerous in every sip? Before you brew your next cup, you need to hear this because what's inside some of these tea bags will shock you. Listen, I used to think all tea was created equal. Green tea is green tea, right? Black tea is black tea. But after discovering what goes into some of these brands, I completely changed what I buy. And today, I'm going to share the 5 tea brands you should never, ever purchase, and the disturbing reasons why. 1. Let's start with Lipton, one of the biggest names in tea. You've probably had Lipton at a restaurant or bought it from the grocery store. It's everywhere. Walk into any supermarket, any gas station, any hotel, you'll find Lipton. It's practically synonymous with tea in America. But here's the problem. Multiple independent laboratory tests have found that Lipton tea bags contain pesticide residues that exceed safe limits by disturbing margins. We're talking about chemicals that are banned in several countries because of their links to hormone disruption, neurological damage, and cancer. And it's not just 1 or 2 pesticides. Some Lipton products tested positive for over 17 different pesticide residues in a single tea bag. Think about that for a second. You're not just drinking tea. You're drinking a chemical cocktail every time you steep that bag in hot water. But it gets worse. The pesticides found in Lipton include some truly nasty ones. We're talking about propicla, which is classified as a likely human carcinogen. We're talking about endosulfan, which damages the nervous system and reproductive organs. And here's what really gets me. When these tests were published, Lipton didn't recall their products. They didn't issue an apology. They basically said their tea meets regulatory standards, which is technically true because the standards are a joke. The allowable limits for pesticides in tea are so high that you could practically spray a tea bag with poison and it would still pass. Lipton knows this, and they're banking on consumers not knowing any better. They spend millions on advertising showing peaceful tea gardens and happy families, but they won't spend money on actually ensuring their product is safe. And let's talk about their sourcing for a minute. Lipton gets most of their tea from massive industrial plantations in Kenya, India, and China. These aren't the picturesque, carefully tended gardens you see in their commercials. These are factory farms where tea is grown as cheaply as humanly possible. That means heavy pesticide use, chemical fertilizers, and zero regard for worker safety or environmental impact. The workers who pick this tea are often exposed to these same chemicals without proper protection. They're getting sick, their children are being born with defects. And Lipton keeps buying from these suppliers because it keeps their costs down and their profits up. 2. And number 2 is Teavana, which is owned by Now, this one really bothers me because Teavana markets itself as premium, high-quality tea. They charge premium prices too. You walk into a Teavana store or order it at Starbucks and you're paying 3, 4, 5 times what you'd pay for regular tea. You assume you're getting something better, something safer. You assume that premium price means premium quality. But investigations by independent testing organizations revealed that 91% of Teavana's teas contained pesticide residues exceeding US limits. Let me repeat that. 91%. That's not a few bad batches. That's virtually their entire product line. Some of their products had over 23 different types of pesticides. These aren't trace amounts either. We're talking about endosulfan at levels multiple times higher than what's considered safe. We're talking about monocrotophos, thiamethoxam, and imidacloprid, chemicals so dangerous that several countries have completely banned them. Endosulfan alone is nightmare fuel. It's been banned globally under the Stockholm Convention because it damages the nervous system, affects fertility, causes birth defects, and can trigger developmental problems in children. But somehow, it's still ending up in tea that people are paying premium prices for at Starbucks. And here's the truly infuriating part. Starbucks built their entire brand on social responsibility and ethical sourcing. They talk a big game about fair trade coffee and sustainable practices. But when it comes to Teavana, those standards apparently don't apply. When these test results came out, Starbucks issued some vague statement about meeting all legal requirements and committed to nothing. No changes to their sourcing, no additional testing, nothing there. Hiding behind inadequate regulations while charging you premium prices for contaminated tea. But reality is that Teavana sources from the same industrial tea suppliers that everyone else uses, but they package it in fancy tins with exotic names and charge you luxury prices. You're not getting hand-picked tea from pristine mountain gardens. You're getting mass-produced pesticide-laden tea leaves with good marketing. That beautiful packaging and those descriptions about rare blends from remote regions. It's all smoke and mirrors to justify the markup. 3. RD Uncle Lee's Legends of China is number 3. This brand positions itself as a traditional, authentic Chinese tea brand. The packaging has that cultural authenticity vibe, with Chinese characters and references to ancient tea traditions. Sounds trustworthy, right? Wrong. Testing found dangerous levels of anthraquinone in their green tea products. This is a substance linked to DNA damage and tumor growth. Their green tea also contained multiple pesticides, including ones that are classified as possible carcinogens. And here's the kicker. Because it's marketed as traditional and natural, people assume it's safer. That's exactly what makes it so dangerous. People buy Uncle Lee's thinking they're getting authentic Chinese tea made the old-fashioned way. They're paying extra for that authenticity. But the reality is that this tea comes from industrial farms in China, where pesticide regulations are virtually non-existent. China has a massive problem with agricultural chemical contamination. The government has admitted that significant portions of their farmland are too polluted to safely grow food, but they're still growing tea on it and exporting it around the world. Uncle Lee's takes advantage of Western consumers' romanticized view of Chinese tea culture while selling them contaminated products. The issue is particularly concerning because this isn't even a pesticide. It's a byproduct of certain processing methods and contamination. Its presence indicates serious quality control problems. And when testing showed these results, Uncle Lee's response was basically silence. They didn't address the concerns, didn't change their sourcing, didn't do anything to reassure consumers. They just kept selling the same tea with the same problems because most people never heard about the test results. Fourth on the list is Tetley. Another household name, another disaster. Tetley has been around for almost 200 years. They're one of the oldest tea brands in existence. That legacy should mean something. It should mean quality and trust. Instead, it means they've had 2 centuries to perfect the art of cutting corners. Tetley tea bags have been found to contain illegal pesticide residues, including monocrotophos, which is so toxic it's banned in the US and Europe. This chemical has been linked to neurotoxicity and has caused fatal poisonings in agricultural workers. It's not something that's dangerous in large amounts, it's dangerous period. Yet somehow, it's making its way into tea bags that millions of people use daily. Even worse, Tetley uses a lot of tea dust and fannings, which are basically the floor sweepings of tea production. After quality tea leaves are processed and sold, the dust and tiny particles that are left over get swept up and sold to companies like Tetley. These companies compress this dust into tea bags and sell it as regular tea. The problem is that these dust particles contain higher concentrations of whatever chemicals were sprayed on the plants. Pesticides settle into the smaller particles, so when you're drinking tea made from dust and fanning, you're getting a more concentrated dose of contamination. Many of their tea bags are made with plastic fibers to seal them. When you pour boiling water over these bags, the plastic releases microplastics and potentially toxic chemicals into your tea. Recent studies have shown that a single plastic tea bag can release billions of microplastic particles into your cup. These particles accumulate in your body over time and have been linked to inflammation, hormone disruption, and other health issues. So with Tetley, you're not just getting pesticide-contaminated tea, you're also getting a side of plastic pollution. Finally, number 5, Bigelow. This one hurts because Bigelow markets itself as an American family company with traditional values. They've been family-owned for generations, and they make a big deal about their American heritage and commitment to quality. Their website is full of heartwarming stories about the family's dedication to tea, but tests show their products contain concerning levels of pesticides too. Their green tea tested positive for propacla, which is classified as a likely carcinogen. Multiple varieties showed residues of chemicals linked to developmental and reproductive harm. What makes this especially troubling is that Bigelow refuses to provide transparency about their sourcing or testing procedures. When consumer advocacy groups asked for information about where their tea comes from and what testing they do, Bigelow stonewalled them. When you can't be honest about what's in your product, that's a massive red flag. If your tea was clean and your practices were sound, you'd be shouting it from the rooftops. The fact that Bigelow won't share this information strongly suggests they have something to hide. Bigelow also uses a lot of artificial flavoring in their teas. Those popular flavors like Constant Comment and Vanilla Chai. They're not getting those flavors from natural ingredients. They're using artificial flavoring chemicals, and they don't have to disclose what those chemicals are. Some of these flavoring compounds have never been properly tested for safety. They're generally recognized as safe based on limited data. but nobody's studying what happens when you consume them daily for years. Combined with the pesticide contamination, you're exposing yourself to a chemical mixture that's never been evaluated for safety. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is this legal? How are these brands still on shelves? Why isn't the government protecting us? The truth is, tea is one of the least regulated beverages out there. The FDA doesn't require testing for most pesticides in tea, and there's virtually no oversight of what companies put in their products. The testing that does happen is minimal and focuses on a limited number of chemicals. Companies can literally put almost anything in tea as long as they don't exceed the laughably high limits for a handful of pesticides. These brands know this, and they're taking full advantage of it. They use the cheapest tea leaves from countries with lax pesticide regulations, process them with who knows what chemicals, and sell them to unsuspecting consumers. The profit margins are incredible because they're spending almost nothing on the actual tea. Most of their budget goes to marketing and packaging, not quality ingredients. They're selling you an image, not a safe product. And here's something most people don't realize. The tea industry is incredibly opaque. Unlike coffee, where you can often trace beans back to specific farms, tea supply chains are murky. Your tea might pass through half a dozen middlemen between the farm and the package. Each step introduces opportunities for contamination and fraud. Tea leaves might be mixed with leaves from different sources. Old tea might be mixed with new tea. There's very little traceability. And companies like it that way because it means they can't be held accountable when problems arise. So what should you buy instead? Look for organic certified teas from reputable companies that do third-party testing. Brands like traditional medicinals, Numi and Pukka are transparent about their sourcing and testing. They publish reports about their quality control processes. They work directly with farmers who use sustainable practices. Yes, they cost a bit more, but you're not paying for pesticides and floor sweepings. You're paying for actual quality tea that won't slowly destroy your health. The price difference is usually just $1 or $2 per box. And that's a small price to pay for avoiding cancer-causing chemicals. Look for certifications like USDA, Organic, Non-GMO Project Verified, and Fair Trade. These aren't perfect, but they indicate that at least some oversight exists. Read the ingredients list carefully. If you see natural flavors or artificial flavors, that's a red flag. Good tea shouldn't need flavoring chemicals. The tea itself should provide the flavor. Also consider buying loose-leaf tea instead of tea bags. Loose-leaf tea is generally higher quality, and you can avoid the microplastics and chemicals that come from tea bag materials. You'll need a tea infuser, but they're cheap and reusable. Plus, loose-leaf tea actually tastes better because you're getting whole leaves instead of dust. The bottom line is this: that cheap box of tea bags might seem like a good deal, but it's costing you way more than money. It's costing you your health. Stop buying these 5 brands immediately, switch to organic, and start reading labels. Your body will thank you. Your morning ritual should be nourishing and restorative, not a daily dose of carcinogens and neurotoxins. You deserve better than what these corporate giants are selling you.